Hello, it's me again. I think I'm in a better frame of mind. I want to edit that last video to get rid of the F word because it's not necessary. I went on a tangent and I need to apologize to anybody who watched it. That if I offended you, I apologize for that. I realize that I'm an angry old lady, I guess. And unfortunately, I'm human, so I make some pretty nasty mistakes. And going forward, I'm going to do my utmost not to allow the topic that I choose to discuss to get me riled up. But I'm a Cape Bretoner, and I'm a redhead, although, you know, I've turned. Redheads either go, just for your information, for those young redheaded girls who like me or unlike me, may have hated being a redhead because it came with a lot of baggage. It came with freckles. It came with lack of resilience when it comes to sun. And I think redheads are kind of a hybrid human, and we tend to have skin issues and all that sort of stuff. Maybe, evolution is a weird thing, and redheads are uniquely positioned, I believe, to suffer the consequences of, environmental, deliberate environmental damage done by our governments. Let's just say that. It's our governments all over the world, but particularly in Canada, poisoned all of our land with their selling out of um, the people of Canada over the course of Canada's existence. Seriously, I think we never really did develop an independence uh, and a freedom structure like the United States did, and it's completely evident today. But over the course of my lifetime, I mean, I've been poisoned by Agent Orange, Agent Purple, Agent White, because I was born, unfortunately, poor, born to poor mom and dad, who lived on a military base in Gagetown in the East Coast. Major poisoning happening there, courtesy of our government, the DND, and their partnership with, the likes of the United States, actually, in some cases, where they didn't want to poison their own people in the United States because they had real freedoms and a real say-so over what was going on in Canada. Canadian people never had any real say-so over anything. They just were cajoled into believing they did. I come to realize, again. Anyway, the result of this person has provable a poisoning from the time prior to even my conception, because both my mom and dad were poisoned with Agent Orange, Agent Purple in Gagetown. You know, my dad was poisoned right from the very beginning, the moment he joined the military. Yeah, the military in Canada doesn't protect the people who, especially the people who are actually expected to do the fighting. And that's why I suppose the military now is trying to source people from Cameroon, places like that, failed states in Africa and all over the world, these failed countries. They're recruiting, according to Keenan Brickstick on Juno News, has reported, and the documents are online and available for anybody to see, the troubles that they're having with recruitment. Well, also, the Canadian committees were investigating that a couple of weeks back, trying to figure out what was going on. How come they're having so many problems with people passing basic training? Well, apparently, when you recruit people out of third world nations, who have no concept whatsoever of real freedom or what it's like to live in a civilized society that isn't war torn, they don't adapt well when they're meant to fight side by side with their mortal enemies. So what's happening? You know, the Congolese and the Cameroonians and whatever else are warring in Africa don't come to Canada, join the military, and get along well with each other during basic training. They don't like women. If, you know, the Nigerians, particularly, who come to Canada to be recruited into our military, they don't like women. So they're not very obedient. Some of them, just saying, that's what the reports are suggesting, that they're having real difficulties passing basic training. So what are they doing? They're accommodating them and trying to incorporate them into Canadian society. Now, I say, instead of recruiting people from enemy countries to Canada to fight in our military, Mr. Carney, I'm wondering why. Who exactly are these people going to be killing in a war situation? Are they going to be killing an enemy to Canada? Or are they going to be killing Canadian citizens? Because it seems to me, Mr. Carney, that you have no allegiance to the Canadian population. Neither do any of these liberal minions you have working for you. That Jolie cow, excuse me, you are a cow. You started your career as what? As what? Rumor has it you were baby PMT's little piece on the side. You know. And you were right-hand man. Well, whose piece on the side are you now? Exactly. Because you got no brain cells. You know. You don't know how to make people sign a contract that protects Canadian citizens. Isn't that the whole reason why this company moved its Jeeps down to the United States? You didn't even read the contract. And they didn't have to pay Canadians off anything. But we gave them, what was it, millions of dollars or billions? I can't remember. You're good at paying people to destroy Canada's economy. That's what you liberal people are doing. And the floor crossers have sold out their constituencies to get a piece of the action before it goes away permanently, right? Like, let's face it, Miss Freeland probably shouldn't come back to Canada, really, ever again, because she shouldn't be safe in Canada after what she's done to Canada. She certainly should be at risk of being imprisoned for the extortion and the backdoor deals and the raping of the taxpayer dollars that she was complicit with, my opinion, given the fact that that seemed to be what the Trudeau government, Liberal government, has been doing to Canadian citizens ever since they were elected by a majority. After Harper at least had the presence of mind to make his backdoor deals behind the scenes. And he at least had a conscience, it seems to me, because he maintained the Canadian borders. It didn't allow every criminal and terrorist and monster from other countries to come into Canada to destroy Canada, like Miller did, right? At least he didn't do that. Sadly, he didn't stand up, and he endorsed O'Toole, another, well, clown, went against the Canadian people during the Emergencies Act. Remember that? Took out all the Canadian truckers, replaced them with Palestinian people who don't have real legitimate licenses. Yeah, that happened. Locked down the Canadian citizens, forced 95% of us. O'Toole, you were part of that. You were part of that. You were not a conservative. You were a money grubbing pig. You were paid off too, I believe, based on your behavior. And the fact that now you're going to be representing the Liberals in whatever nonsense baloney that they've got going on internationally. Carney, apparently, according to Elevate News or Elevate podcast this morning, is actually, if you watch it, you can hear him say that he's going to allow Europe to draw the international maps. Now, I believe, if I remember correctly, international maps don't get redrawn by European elitists. Not without a war of some kind. I mean, they did get redrawn during the Cold War, or after, with the fall of the Cold War. Yeah. And then before that, they got redrawn at the end of World War II, the end of World War One, Neapolitan Wars. I mean, it's a war. Somebody has to win an actual war to decide whether or not borders and international lines can be drawn on a map of the world. So I suggest somebody should point that out to Mr. Carney. Unless, of course, he's recruiting all these people from these third world nations that are failed states into his military, so he can use his military under the Emergencies Act to kill off the rest of the Canadian population. You know, those people that were born in Canada, came to Canada to live the Canadian life, the Canadian culture, freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of commerce, freedom to own property, freedom to raise their kids. You know, all those things that Mr. Carney's against, especially. Well, he's for it for himself, but for Canadians, not so much. Man, oh man, I wonder what it was like for a little minion like you, a tiny little man with a tiny little brain, and I suspect a lot of other tiny little things. I wonder what it was like for you growing up in Dawson. Was it Dawson Creek in the Yukon? Maybe you were protected because you were money. You were one of the people that were exploiting the resources of Dawson, the Yukon. Your family probably was very rich, and you probably didn't have to do any time, really. But I suspect if you, a little guy like you, who has such a huge ego, well, probably got beaten up a lot, or should have gotten beaten up a lot, because I couldn't imagine you getting along well with your other people, your peers, because you believe you're superior. I wonder who taught you that you are Lord God in heaven. You claim to be Catholic. There's nothing Catholic about you. You wouldn't sell out the Canadian people the way you have to Europe. To Europe. Well, that's a failed exercise in futility, isn't it? What did you appoint some? What did the Europeans do? Appointed some woman to sell out all the nations of Europe who were stupid enough to become part of the European Union? Gave up their sovereignty to become part of the European Union? Oh, the people that were lived in those countries, those various countries, the everyday people. How did they do? Are they managing to dodge the machete attacks that come from all of their open borders and all of their invaders that came from failed states and warring fractions, ISIS, and all those transplanted terrorists that came up from, their successful destruction of Iraq, Libya, Syria, Hmm. To destroy the people of Europe and Great Britain. That experiment's working out well. And here's the diminutive little man, if you can call him that. Oh, maybe we should call him an it, because he's part of that Canadian brain dead people that try to force people to turn their back on science and biology and decide that, well, we're not supposed to be he or she anymore, right? He's and she's are human beings, have supposed to have a, thoughts, independent thinking. Those of us, of course, who were smart enough not to be brainwashed by this CRTC approved propaganda machine that's taken over everything in Canada with all the gerrymandering, I like that word, of the laws of Canada as far as it started back in the 80s when some stupid teacher decided to teach his students in Alberta, it was, I believe, that the Holocaust didn't happen. Well, the Holocaust did happen, but it wasn't just Jewish people that were murdered in the Holocaust. It was intellectuals. There was a lot of Christians, especially Christian leaders, and Catholics. And then, of course, you know, people like the Carney crowd and the European Union crowd and the King's crowd, King Charles. Now, Queen Elizabeth, yes, good lady. She lived through the war. She knew what was happening. Her father became King of England because her uncle, remember, he was a Nazi. Or that's what they say. That he was a little too close to Hitler. So he couldn't be king. Right? But Queen Elizabeth was a good woman. And I know that she didn't buy into the brainwashing Roman, is it the Rome Club? Now, Charles, were you involved with that too, along with Pierre Trudeau? The Rome Club that eventually became the WEF, back in 1967, 1968. That's true. You all got together and figured out how you could rule the world, remember? Climate change, part of that problem. So one interesting thing about climates, they change. And when you have governments that are deliberately poisoning the atmosphere, there's going to be consequences to that. Happened in Canada. They poisoned the land with all these experimental things that were the first here in Canada. Canada's like, frontline experimental country from its beginning, from the moment it was discovered, and all those wars happened. Mr. Carney wants to pick out this Brock as his hero. Well, I pick out Sir John A. Macdonald as mine. He was our founding father. And they tried to create a country that was close to, under the parliamentary system, because the king still had rule. And, of course, France still had rules in their monarchy. They are authoritarians in one way or another, monarchy or whatever. Point was, she did the best she could with the beginning of this country, but unfortunately, we were never really free, were we? We were always owned by somebody. It was the East Indian Trading Company out of Britain. What company out of France was it that was controlling everything? I don't know. Don't care. Carney sold us out. He's out the door. He doesn't even try to hide it anymore. Canada isn't Canada. It's apparently part of the European Union. How many Canadians voted for that when they voted for Carney to become our Prime Minister? How many Canadians voted for our military to be taken over by third world nations? You know, our military was used under the Emergency Act in Ottawa. Remember that? Remember that, people? 2022, February, when every Canadian citizen stood up, supported the truckers. Carney advised Trudeau, use the Emergencies Act, turn the military on the people of Canada, clear them out. We can ask for forgiveness later. Well, he's planning on doing it again. He's already out the door with that. Should Alberta really believe it's got the freedom to leave this, this state that's either part of the European Union, which means globalists and the monarchies and the climate deranged people who worship Mother Earth over God, and therefore it's easy to say, destroy the humans or parasites, right? It's easy to have that kind of mindset when you don't believe in God, when you believe you're God, or you believe that, the parasites, the common people, the people who build the country are nothing but your enemy because they're not going to do as they're told because they believe in God. They believe that they have a right. That's what Canadians used to believe. We have the right to say, no, don't close our church. We're not afraid of a stupid virus, especially one that's man-made, probably stolen from a Winnipeg gain-of-function laboratory, taken to Wuhan to perfect and release on the people of the world to create the Great Reset that the Schwabs and the Soroses and the Gates and all the royalty of today decide needs to be released so that they can experiment and see how far they can push it. They pushed it pretty far in Canada. And they've got another one, I guarantee it, ready to rock. Should these attempts to fail, should Mr. Trump, for example, and the Republicans grow brain cell and make sure that they maintain their seats and accumulate a few more in this midterm so that you can protect what remains of American sovereignty, because believe you me, it was supposed to be gone by now. You're not supposed to be free either, Americans. You're not supposed to be free. You're supposed to be part of the European Union. What do you think Biden was doing? What do you think the guy before Biden was doing? Obama, I mean. Trump threw a monkey wrench into that. I mean, wasn't it Hillary Clinton who made a deal with Russia to give uranium? Now, I could be wrong, but I remember way back when Obama was still pretending to be president of the United States. Because really, come on, he's a con man. Became president, in my opinion. But he didn't legitimately. He wasn't you had a population of people who wanted desperately to see a person of color run the country. But you could have picked one with brains who had conscience. Unfortunately, the Democrats had gerrymandered the system so that really you guys were this close to never being able to have a legitimate election again until Trump threw a monkey wrench into that electoral process you guys got in the United States and exposed it for what it was. A Democrat sellout to their masters. You know, the ones with all the money that bought and paid for them all. Just saying. Seems right to me. By this old girl, very observant. Been sick most of my life. As a consequence of that, I've been housebound, and when you've got a brain, you want to do things with it. In my case, it was always learning more. Why? That question, why, is so wonderful. So wonderful because it inspires you to find the answers to the questions that matter. We're born with that. You know, 3-year-olds, everybody who's ever raised children knows that they get tired of answering questions that a 3-year-old will ask. It's because we're made in the image and likeness of God Almighty. And we have the capacity to know. Knowledge is important. And now, you know, back in the Trump first term, he had no idea how monopolized information was in the United States. It was already monopolized all over the world. But he ended up exposing it. Because how do you stop the President of the United States from speaking his mind? And he had one. Now, I don't know what he's doing. My hope and prayer is that he's still on the right track. My hope and prayer is that the people who might be advising him to do the will of a collective get exposed. Or at least, you know, Donald Trump Jr., I believe if you looked hard, do what Biden's son didn't. Well, Biden's son was making money off his daddy too, so of course. And he was a drug addict, so what do you expect? But the point is, you might consider that there is a middle road to the information that's out there. I would suggest you investigate, make sure that the people who are advising your dad are not compromised in some way. Because he's got a lot on his plate and he can't keep up with everything. I mean, he's got a bit of an ego, let's be honest. I mean, he's a human being, so he's not going to be perfect. And, well, we all know he's not perfect, Mr. Trump. Your intentions when you came into the presidency were good and noble. It's very easy to lose sight of what's good and noble when you have some evil devil whispering in your ear everything you want to hear. And I don't know if you do or you don't. I don't think that you're doing anything wrong with Iran, as long as you keep boots off the ground in Iran and allow Iranians to come together and create the country that they want, provided that they open up that Strait of Hormuz to other people to use at will. Because waterways are important, and peace-loving people, have a duty to ensure that the waterways that divide countries are open to everybody who has good intentions. Anyway, that's a telephone call from somebody that I needs my help, so I'm going to be cutting this short today. Point is, I hope I didn't ramble on too long. It's Wednesday, May the 5th, I believe. May the 5th, or the 6th. I can't remember. It's one of those days. Whatever day Wednesday is in May, it's before Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. I hope you can celebrate it. even if if you're becoming a mother because you've got an unexpected pregnancy in that little womb of yours. That child is there for a reason, and it's a gift, no matter what anybody tells you. It's a gift. And your instincts are right. It goes against everything you are as a woman to kill your baby. Just so you know. Don't let society, culture, criminal, evil people persuade you to do something that your conscience has to live with for the rest of your life. Anyway, I guess that's it for today. I know I plan to Elevate, Josh from Elevate, watch that. Dr. John Campbell. He interviewed a lady a few weeks ago who wrote a beautiful novel that told the story of what Bill Gates and all these scientists were up to during the COVID nonsense. That great reset that Soros and Schwab, Carney's, Gates, all those people help Fauci, help create, set on the rest of the world just another opinion. Read her book. I know the title is 3/11, 3/11, March the 11th, when the World Health Organization locked down the world, declaring a pandemic. Now we know, those of us who are thinkers, who look for the reason why that happened, we know that really was a pandemic organized to reset the world and make a lot of people, a few people, a lot of money and poison millions of people with an experimental vaccine that isn't really a vaccine. Look into it. It's the truth. We weren't allowed to find out the truth during the COVID years, remember? Everything was censored, Mr. Trump. That's why you had that election stolen from you. Just saying. Truth comes out, always bubbles to the top. It's like oil. You're never going to get rid of it until you get rid of it by skimming it off the top. Eventually, it comes out. Now, they didn't expect it to come out until 2095, according to the author of this book. 2090s. Imagine how many people wouldn't be alive by then. Imagine how history could be rewritten by then. Imagine what the world would look like by then if the globalists get away with what they did and are continuing to do. Now, Mr. Carney, Canadian citizens didn't agree to have third world military come join our armed forces. Our armed forces are to defend the Canadian people against outside, not to be used by the Prime Minister against the people of the country who don't agree with him. So I suggest you stop recruiting people from failed states. They should at least be born in Canada. They're not born in Canada. We don't want them defending us. They don't have the same kind of point of view we do. We need people in our military who have the same values as Canadians. Not these people that have invaded our country since 2017, thanks to you and your friends. We don't want the enemy running our military. Don't let that happen. If you want more information on it, please investigate. Keenan Brixet, Juno News. You watch Juno News, and Keenan, he's on Substack. He was originally an intern for Rebel News. He is exposed last week the documents that prove that Carney's military are failing because they're using people from failed states to develop The military. All those military men that lost their right to be in the military because they didn't take the jab. Remember that jab that you had to take? How many Canadian born people are in the military today? Canadian military? The people in charge of the military? You know, the generals and master sergeants, and please, please, look into it. If it's true, I'm not saying for sure it's true, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be safe for Canadians, because people that come from outside don't like Canadians. They don't. We've been privileged. We've lived a privileged lifestyle compared to where they're coming from. If they're told to kill us all, hey, more room for us. We deserve it. I'm just thinking out loud. You know, I could be crazy. Maybe I am. But if I'm right, if any portion of what I say is right, wouldn't you want to prepare Canadian people? Wouldn't you want to know before it's too late? Wouldn't you want to protect your children from an enemy that's inside your country? Rapists, murderers, terrorists? Wouldn't you want to keep the property you've gone into debt to buy? Pass it down to your children? What has Canada become? What's Carney's vision of Canada exactly? He doesn't live here. He hasn't lived here in years. He's either sold us out to the European Union and the oligarchs that run that, or China. These oligarchs, we thought we were free to own, to hunt, to raise our children, to grow our own food, to use the resources of the land that we live in. That's not Carney's plan for Canadians and Canada. His plan for Canada is to destroy it and eliminate any middle class and turn our country into masters and servants. He's done nothing but perpetuate that plan. Based on my thinking, he's certainly done nothing for the Canadian-born people that live here. Nothing. Especially those who want to work and earn their own living their own way and keep their paychecks. Spend it on what they choose to spend their money on, not what Carney says you're allowed to. We're destroying ourselves by staying silent and allowing it to continue. It's time to stop it from happening. And Americans, our brothers and sisters, you're not our enemies. No matter how many times our political leaders and our store-bought news programming tries to say we are, we're not. We're brothers and sisters, cousins. We, North America. I mean, if maps are being redrawn, I say we should have a referendum. Does Canada want to be part of the European Union and therefore slaves? Or do we want to become part of the United States of America? Free. Free. No matter how obnoxious you might think Mr. Trump is, and he can be very obnoxious, there's no question. At least he's trying to keep freedom for the people of the land that he lives and loves. That's not the case for our clowny Carney and his minions. Jolie, God, you make me sick to my stomach. You are an example of everything that's evil and wrong with women. everything bad a woman could become is involved in your whole persona. There's nothing about you that's worth admiration. And if, God forbid, you have children, I hope that they can see the evil that you are. And perhaps if I pray for you, you might actually see the evil that took over what you were supposed to be, and change your ways. But making deals and not wanting to talk about the nuances of how those deals are going to be adhered to tells me that you haven't learned any kind of lesson over what you've done to Canadian citizens and Canadian-born people. And you're going to keep on selling us out, keep on getting paid, and using everything you are, including your body, to get what you want. A woman who wants power is not a woman, really. A woman who wants control is not a woman, really. A woman wants to be respected, loved for who they are, not for their body, and what they can provide. The feminine genius dwells within each woman. That's the reason why men love us and will do pretty much anything we ask them to, provided we're good. And we want the best, but we can also persuade men to do evil things. Stop it. Jolie, retire. Actually resign and put your seat up for election. You might be able to escape the consequences of your behavior if you do that. All these liberals who have a conscience, why don't you do mass resignation? That's a way to prevent the evil that's coming to Canada. And have a conscience and redeem yourselves. Just saying. Love you guys. Have a good day.